Hi, everyone. I'm Cindy Skalicki with On Point Communications, bringing you our next episode of Getting to the Point, where I bring to you an expert in her field to share with you 3 things you can apply right now, today. And I'm so excited to bring to you my good friend, Beth Kennedy. She is the CEO of Benatti Leadership Development, and we have done a lot of work together in the past. We first met back in like 2016, I think it was, Beth, at the Career Thought Leaders Conference that was taking place in Denver. And I just so enjoyed getting to meet Beth there and then staying in touch with her. She lives in Massachusetts right now. And I'll just turn it over to you, Beth, to give us a quick 1-2 punch of what you do at Benatti Leadership Development.
Sure. I think it's important to share a little bit about kind of how I got to where I am today.
Yeah.
And I basically began as a school counselor in the Boston Public Schools and absolutely loved it. I felt like that was my calling. And at about year 7, I just noticed that my energy wasn't as strong as it used to be. My excitement to get up in the morning wasn't quite where it should have been. And I noticed what I call going down this burnout escalator. And it really shocked me because I thought I would retire being a school counselor. So at that point, I did a lot of reflection. And one of the things I realized when I pressed the pause button was that many times, even when we're following our calling or using our strengths, we can start to go down again this burnout escalator. So I was very lucky. I had this wonderful manager that sent me to, didn't send me, but recommended a program called, many of you may be familiar with, it's called MBSR, the Mind Body Stress Reduction Program by John Kabat-Zinn. And I attended it. And the best part about it was it gave me the space to realize at some point I might need to make a change. And at that point, I started my business, Benatti Leadership Development. And what I do is I offer leadership coaching to individuals that love their careers but work too much. And I have a particular mission, and my mission is to recharge professionals so that they have the energy, the passion to be the best in their career, but also in their personal life.
That's so important. I love that story, Beth, and we've talked about that story and crafted that story for some of your talks in the past, but it's so timely right now in such an amazing way. Obviously, we're in this in between. This, global pandemic has befallen us for a while now. We don't know what the end looks like or when that will be. And, whether people are watching this during that time or after that time, doesn't really matter. We all end up hitting walls or hitting points of crises that shake us at our core. And so your message is so timely right now for others who are in the middle of a lot of burnout, whether that's Zoom burnout or work from home burnout, because we're managing so many things at one time. And what you've done that I've been able to learn and apply from your book, which I have on my bookshelf back there. And I've just really loved reading it. It's got such great personal stories of your clients you've worked with. You've developed this model. And we're going to hit on 3 of those points today, not all 5.
Yeah.
Hit on 3. So list for us, please, the 5 points, and then tell us the 3 we're going to talk about today.
Sure. So the model is called the Benatti Resiliency Model, and there's 5 key anchors. There's well-being, self-awareness, brand, connection, and innovation. And for today's episode, there were 3 that I think I want to focus on. And they are self-awareness, brand, and connection. Okay. So I want to begin with self-awareness because I do think that sometimes we think, self-awareness, that means just getting to know myself. But it's bigger than that. There's 3, I call them vibe points. They are purpose, growth mindset, and type. So what do I mean by that? When we look at purpose, especially when there's a transition going on. So as Cindy mentioned, we're right in the middle of this craziness with this pandemic, but any transition, whether it's a retirement or whether you have a son or daughter having a baby or getting married, there's a lot of stress. And one of the things that's really helpful is to think about, what is your purpose? Why do you get up in the morning? And when I think about purpose, there are three things I want you to think about. One is, what are your guiding principles or your values? Because what I found over my 25 years of coaching is, many times we're just moving forward, but we're not really grounding ourselves into what's really is the right way for us to move forward.
Right.
So again, yeah, like, why do you get up in the morning?
Well, I think of chasing squirrels is what I'm thinking about. Like, when you see something shiny or you see something moving, you go after that. But if you are grounded, like you're saying, and aware of your purpose.
I love that example, Sydney. I love that example. I always tell clients, it reminds me of people that are just fishing. Like, you're just throwing it out. It's like, whatever happens, oh, I caught the fish. Okay, that's fine. But we need to be more purposeful. And even if you think about, and the big piece of resilience is, again, moving forward. But even if you think about this idea of purpose, we can say to ourselves, not only is it our values, but it's also, what is the difference you want to make? So I always tell clients, think about that job that you loved. What were the pieces in that job that motivated you, that excite you, that just got you really, into flow where you're working, the day just flies by.
Yes, when you don't have anything else you want to do and the time just disappears.
Right. So purpose is that whole idea of, how do we get into flow? And I do think that part of resiliency is pressing that pause button and thinking about that. And what I have my clients do is something that's called a purpose mind map.
Okay.
So in the middle of it, you put your values, and on the outside, you ask yourself some of these important questions. And what are my strengths? What are the things that move me forward in my career? And then the last piece is, what do I do for my recharge? And you don't see that a lot in many purpose statements, but I think it's so important, because if there are things you love to be doing, whether it's gardening or spending time with friends and hopefully traveling, does your life support that? Because sometimes we need to make some changes so that we can have that full picture.
Yeah, and I think that what I've noticed from our work together and thinking about what you do is, and I think it was in your story from your, when you were at the Boston schools, this is something that sometimes happens so slowly. You don't realize that you're getting to this burnout stage.
Yeah.
I think that you're noble for having worked 10-hour days for 3 weeks or 4 weeks in a row, and that, your badge of honor is this, this running out of steam kind of approach to your work. But that is not exactly what is best for our mental health, our family health, our brain health with what we want to do and what we love to do. So that self-awareness is definitely key. So that's a great exercise, the one that you just mentioned with the values in the middle. What was it? What drives me?
What's the contribution you make in your career?
Right.
It's a powerful question to think about. Like, at the end of the week, what's the impact you made that you're proud of?
Right.
And if you can't think about that, and if you're having a hard time thinking about that, maybe you need to do some tweaking. Maybe it's meeting with your manager and saying, can I get on a different project? Or sometimes I've had clients get involved in volunteer work that can also bring you closer to your purpose.
Are you going to talk later about the 5-Minute Fridays? Or
yes.
Okay.
Yes, Friday 5. Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Well, let's go to point 2, which I know is about brand. So what do you mean by brand? Are you talking personal brand, company brand? What are you talking about?
So the 3 things I want you to think about for brand are attributes. What makes you stand out? What differentiates you? And brand is not bragging. And that's why so many people they'll say, Beth, I don't want to work on my brand. And I'll say, if you want to be resilient, you need to know how you're different and to share that and celebrate that.
Right.
So it's attributes, it's impact. And this is important. My tagline for my business is resilience, impact, and influence. And the impact comes from that brand piece.
Okay.
So as we mentioned with purpose, purpose is like your internal compass. Brand is your external compass. So how are you being seen? Jeff Bezos has a famous quote, when you're not in the conference room, what are people saying about you?
Yeah, that's right. That's when, how are you showing up on social? What does your logo say? Is it associated with good? I love that. What are people thinking and saying when you're
Yeah, a
there?
lot of the work like you do with Cindy, how are you showing up? And
Yeah.
the piece I have people think about with brand, it's those little things. Even now if you're on video a lot,
Yep.
Are you turning
Yeah.
on your video? Are
Right.
you
How's your
energized?
background? How's your eye contact? How's your
Right,
lighting? Those things are all associated with that piece that we can't really ignore anymore as much as we're on Zoom right
right,
now. So,
right, exactly,
right,
exactly. And
right,
that last piece is what's the reputation you want to have? So what's that legacy you want to leave?
right.
So, it's so interesting now. I do a lot of leadership coaching, and there's some organizations, there's a lot more conflict going on. And it's
Mm,
because, we're not bumping into each other in the coffee room to be able to, talk and work things out. We're over video and it can be a little bit more difficult. So, to press that pause button, make sure how are we making someone feel?
right.
And what is that email going to do as far as like big picture, right now, short term? So again, it's
Yep.
that reputation. So brand is the whole package.
Well, I'll tell you what, I'll show you a moment of vulnerability. Last week, I sent an email by mistake instead of hitting save. And then I went about my other things for like an hour or an hour and a half. And this person wrote me back and I reread what I had written. And I was like, oh my God. I called her right away and I said, oh
Oh,
my gosh, I'm so sorry that I sent that early. I didn't mean to. And it wasn't that I had written anything particularly, you know, but I didn't do what I normally would do, which is write something sensitive at the end. I mean, we were discussing a contract, so it was
right.
definitely, something important to be sensitive about.
Yeah,
And she was so appreciative that I called, but I did. I said, "Oh, I'm so sorry that," because I'm sure when you read that, you did not think
right.
that that was something I would normally send. And she's like, "Yeah, it was. I thought maybe something had happened." And so just clearing that air and not being afraid to pick up the phone or to write back, with that authenticity, which I know you speak so often
Yeah,
about.
yeah,
I have another friend of mine who specializes in writing, and I love what she says about the need to be nice in your emails.
yeah,
And how can you change what you have just written so that it comes across as nice? And I think that's so simple, but kind of hard sometimes.
yeah.
So, yeah,
And I
it's
think,
all about that brand that
yeah, and
you,
I think especially these days we're working harder, longer hours, and you don't have that transition time.
yeah,
So many of us that used to commute into cities. So
right,
again, it's like, okay, how do I make sure I'm showing up? And
yeah,
at the end of the day, the end of the week, the end of the month, having the impact and the reputation
right.
that I want to have.
I'm
Um,
curious, Beth, when you walk into these larger, I know you work with a lot of corporate teams.
yeah,
How do people respond when you start talking about personal brand? Is this usually really new to them, or do they kind of have a basic understanding? Is this
you
one
know,
of
it,
the
it's
hard? Yeah, go ahead.
yeah, it's such a great question because I have been doing a lot of branding sessions the last few weeks.
Mhm.
And people are so excited about it. They
Oh, good.
even in these big companies, they always a lot of the feedback that they'll give me is I always thought about it about my product, but not about myself.
Okay, good.
And the other piece of positive feedback that they've said is I can't believe how it can improve our team by
Oh,
everyone being taking that ownership on each person's brand.
right. Oh, that's great. Because I
So
would
it can
think
improve
that,
team engagement.
yeah, making them feel special inside of a large homogeneous company in some ways, at least that's already under like a large brand. How can you create your own differentiation? That must be a fun kind of eye-opening exercise for those
And
groups.
And a
So,
quick thing for everyone on this call to think about is what are the three words that best describe you?
oh, good. Great
So it's just
exercise.
something to think about.
Mhm.
Mine are resilience, connector, and leader.
Okay.
And your three words, you should feel proud about it. So if you're not sure, that's a good like action item for after this call.
I have some homework I'll have to do. Well, let's go to the next piece, Beth, which I know is one of your favorite ones to talk
Yeah.
about, which is
So connection,
connection.
it's also when I was writing my book, Career Recharge, there's so much incredible research on connection.
Mhm.
Some of you may be familiar with Dan Buettner, who has out the great TEDx talk on blue zones. he travels around the world and he notices, wow, what is it that makes people live to be 100, but be healthy and happy? And there's two things that really bubble up. The first one is purpose, which we've already talked about. But the second one is this idea of connection and how important that is. The longest study that's ever taken place is by Harvard. It's still going on. It's over 75 years.
Oh, wow.
And that study as well started with kids in high school and has tracked them. Now they have their own children. Some of them are still alive in their 90s. What is the one common thing among the people that are still alive and healthy and happy is the power of connection.
That's so cool. And the longevity of the study sure gives it some clout, and some credibility.
Yes.
So
yes.
that is so cool.
And that's another wonderful TEDx if anyone wants a little follow-up to today's call.
Yeah, thank you for that. I'll rewind and make sure we get that in the notes section. But when you think about when you talk to others about connection, I'm thinking for my own self, once in a while I need to go out with a girlfriend and have a glass of wine, or I need to connect with just the ground and take a nice long walk, or some music that I really love. What are things that you suggest, and for how long do we need to connect with?
Yeah, so one of the things I think is really important and everyone should think about this right now is in your career, who's on your boat with you? Who's supporting you? So, and again, this could be people in your organization, and it could be people outside of your organization, like the girlfriend that you're meeting for a drink.
Right.
But I think what's so important is to think about, do you have a champion, someone that believes in you? And do you have allies? Allies are just friends that you can reach out to.
Yeah.
And often people will say to me, oh, I'm not really sure. And that's where Cindy asked me to talk about my Friday 5.
Yeah.
And that's where
it's Friday today.
Yes, it is Friday today. And what I want to recommend, again, and not that we want any of you to multitask, but what I want to recommend you do is take out your phone. And if you're exercising, do it when you're done. And pick 5 minutes on Friday to put in your phone, career recharge.
Okay.
And when that pops up, take 5 minutes and think about, who could I connect with today? Who could I schedule with for next week? So just focus on the area of connection.
Love it.
And what I've learned over my years of coaching is connection. We don't want to start connecting just when we lose a job. Or we don't want to connect with someone like all of a sudden, I've been out of touch for 6 years and I need this.
Right. When you need something, you want to just connect for the sake of connecting. And actually that happened to me yesterday. I had this wonderful woman I met through a webinar that I delivered who we really kicked it off after this initial, meet and greet call that we did. And then she just popped up in my calendar and said, I just wanted to catch up. And I'm like, maybe she's read your book, Beth. I don't know. But we had such a nice call yesterday just to catch up. And
isn't that so great? It's interesting because I had a similar call last night as well from a vice president that I coached one of his people, and he reached out to me.
Yeah.
It was
so nice. Your work, look at the fruits of your labor.
And the other thing I want to share about connection is we now know about the brain chemicals. There's such wonderful, with stress, there's so much cortisol in our system, but with connection, we get dopamine and we get oxytocin.
Yes.
And that's why after both our calls, we're like, ooh, we're feeling good.
Yeah.
So
those are part of the I nailed it feeling as well that we talk about.
Yes. So in my book, I share at the end of every chapter, they're called resiliency boosters. So there are these things you can work on. And then I also say there are these things that are sparks, things you can do right away. So just like listening to a webinar is a chance to spark your recharge, your influence. But with connection, we want to think about it being really small. It's not about filling up your boat with so many people that you're going to sink. It's filling your boat with people that support you, recharge you, reinvigorate you. So I always say, again, it's that little thinking about the turtle, slow and steady wins.
Right.
Every Friday, during your Friday 5, if you just think of one person to contact next month, that's 12 new people every month. Every week.
Yeah, that's a great idea. That's the Friday 5. I'll definitely have to add that to my phone calendar.
Yeah.
Sure. Well, this was so great, Beth. We got through all our 3 main pieces. And before we go, I'm going to ask you a couple of fun other
Great.
questions are just
Okay.
rapid fire, but we did get a chance to explore self-awareness, brand, and connection. So those are the three of the pieces in your model for a career recharge. So one of my questions for the rapid fire questions has to do with mentors. So I want to ask you, do you have a specific mentor who really, I know you do, but which one of your special mentors would you say had a major impact on your trajectory in your career?
Yeah, I love this question. The one that's popping up to me right now was one of my college psychology professors. I went to a really small college called Benatti College, and his name is Gail Thompson. And he taught me so much about the idea of how important it is to journal. He taught me how important it is to try yoga, which he introduced me to yoga many, many years ago, which I'm still doing.
Great.
And he introduced to me the importance of breathing and meditation.
Okay.
And the piece I want to share with everyone on this call is he taught me this technique. It's called calm, relax, smile. So you inhale for calm, you exhale for relax, you inhale for relax, you exhale for smile, you inhale for smile, and you exhale for calm.
Right.
So I would encourage all of you, write that down, calm, relax, smile. I use it all the time. And it's actually great before you present. It's great when you get one of those emails and you're feeling stressed out. Or today when I look at my desk and I have like 16 piles everywhere and I'm like, oh my gosh. I'm like, calm, relax.
Smile. That's one of those things you can put on your sticky note and write your little, camera lens, calm, relax.
Yeah.
Wonderful. Well, I wonder if you have, you could send this to him and let him know that that you mentioned this person to, is it him? Did you say Gail?
It's actually a gentleman. And unfortunately he passed away, but his family, I'm still connected with his wife and his children. One of them is actually in Colorado.
Oh, well, good. Well, maybe I'd like to know that you still remember him in this really great way.
Yes. And I've also mentioned him in my book because he was such a key piece of me. I feel like learning to get myself centered as a young college kid.
That's awesome. Well, my final question has to do with books. So you can choose whatever path you want. You can, of course, show us your book that you have written and tell us about that. But I'm also curious, do you have a really great book you're currently reading that is, maybe outside of your realm, that's just for pleasure, that you also would like to share with us, and maybe a nugget from that book?
Yes. So I'm going to share the gentleman who I talked about with Purpose and Connection, Thrive, by Dan Buettner.
Okay.
The book is called Thrive, Finding Happiness the Blue Zone's Way.
Okay.
So for me, I think what's been super exciting is all of his scientific research really supports my Benatti resiliency model. Okay. So it's so fun to have two different books. His is about overall happiness. Mine is more focusing on career recharge. But it's amazing. It's so exciting. As I read it, I just get thrilled that we complement each other so much.
So great. Wonderful. So, it's called Thrive.
I highly recommend it. And he has out 3 books, but I really enjoyed the Thrive one.
Good. Wonderful. Wow, Beth. Well, this time has completely flown by, as I knew it would, but I want to thank you so much for coming in and being part of our season 2, for getting to the point. Thanks for getting us to the point of those 3 pieces: self-awareness, brand, and connection. And I know you're doing such great things out there for all the professionals who are learning from you about how to avoid that burnout escalator. So if any of you watching are feeling burnt out or need some new direction toward resilience, Beth's book is just fantastic. It's called Career Recharge. You can find her all over the place on LinkedIn. Are you on Facebook too?
I'm on Facebook, and I wanted to mention, if you are on LinkedIn, send me a note. I do only connect with people that I know, or if they say you were on Cindy's
podcast. I'd love to know who that would be. That would be fun. Tag me and let me know.
And we could, and even maybe share a nugget of how the podcast was helpful. So I would love. I really believe in connection, as you can see, and it would be fun to have to be able to share some more resilience tips as well.
That's right. Yep. And there's some great tidbits here about the model, and the exploring the purpose and the Friday 5. So you've given us some nice action-oriented tips, which is always fun to pull from, the time that our guests spend watching this. It's great when they can walk out with something to do and to think about. So Beth, thank you so much. It's been wonderful to reconnect with you today, and wishing you a wonderful rest of your day. And we'll be in touch soon. Thanks for joining us today.
Thank you, Cindy. It was really, really
Bye,
fun.
everybody. Wait till next time. We'll have another episode of Getting to the Point, and let us know what you think in the comments. Take care.